Welcome to the Kendo and Aido Italia podcast in this English language version. Enjoy listening.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into a weapon that really tells the whole story about Japanese history, warfare, and, well, cultural adaptation. The Naginata. At sea now. A classical pole weapon that's maybe not as simple as it looks.
Exactly. It's got layers.
And our sources today, they explore its incredible history, its surprisingly sophisticated construction, and how it evolved from this, battlefield dominator practiced in traditions like Sekiguchi Ryu into something, well, quite different, much more personal, almost domestic.
And that comparison you mentioned earlier, it's key right off the bat. If you need a frame of reference, you could almost think of it like a Japanese cousin to the European medieval falchion. Similar idea, structurally.
Ah, okay. A polearm with a curved, single-edged blade.
Right. Highly sophisticated. It's optimized for these powerful slashing cuts and, crucially, reach. It's not just about thrusting like a spear, a yari.
Got it. And I think that leads us to the core question for this deep dive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How does this weapon, which was apparently the bane of heavy cavalry,
Oh, definitely.
how does it eventually transition into becoming this essential, refined tool wielded primarily by the women of the warrior class, managing and defending their household?
That trajectory is, truly remarkable. And that's what we need to trace.
Okay, so to understand its power, we probably need to start with the basics, the engineering. What is a Naginata physically?
Right. So first off, it's definitely not a lance or yari. The key features are a long, curved, single-edged blade. And this blade is distinctively wider towards the tip.
Wider at the tip.
Interesting. Yeah, it adds momentum to the cut. And this blade is set onto a handle or shaft, which was usually, though not always, shorter than a typical yari.
And the construction details.
Yeah.
I gather these are pretty important. They separate it from just being a pole with a sharp bit.
Absolutely. The handle, for example, wasn't just a standard pole. It was often custom built, tailored specifically to the height of the user.
Really? Custom?
Yeah. While, the average might have been around 150 centimeters, maybe 5 feet, some historical examples went well over 2 meters, quite long.
And wasn't there something specific about the shape of the handle, too? Not just round.
You got it. Crucially, the handle had an ellipsoidal cross-section, an oval shape.
Okay, why? Is that just for grip?
It's partly grip comfort, sure, but it's much more than that. It's a critical ergonomic feature, speaks directly to high-speed combat.
How so?
Well, that subtle oval shape gives the user constant, instant, tactile feedback. You always know which way the edge is oriented without looking.
So even in a fast exchange, you can feel the blade alignment.
Exactly. Instantly. Which is essential when you consider the blade itself. This wasn't some crude farming tool repurpose.
Right. You mentioned it was sophisticated, like a sword blade.
Very much so. The blade construction basically mirrored the legendary katana. We're talking forged steel, different grades of hardness between the spine and the edge.
Differential hardening on a polearm.
Yep. To maximize both that devastating cutting ability and impact resistance, it needed to be tough and sharp.
And I read something interesting about sourcing these blades.
Yeah.
They weren't always made from scratch.
That's right. Economic reality, I suppose. The samurai class was efficient. We found sources mentioning that Naginata blades were often actually recycled katana blades.
Huh. So a broken or maybe outdated sword could get a new life.
Exactly. Repurposed into a powerful pole weapon. It maximized the incredible skill of the swordsmiths without starting over. Smart resource management, really.
Okay, so you have this long shaft, this high-quality, potentially heavy blade.
Yeah.
How did they manage the balance for actual fighting?
Good question. To make that massive cutting edge manageable, especially for these rapid flowing movements, the shaft needed counterbalancing.
Okay.
So at the opposite end, the butt end, it mounted the Ishizuki, basically a heavy metal shoe or cap.
A counterweight.
Precisely. It acted as a counterweight, shifted the balance point back, made it feel less top heavy. And bonus, it could also be used offensively.
As a striking point.
Yeah, for close-in work, jabbing, striking, a blunt impact tool. Very versatile.
Before we jump into the history, you mentioned variants. It wasn't just one standard design.
No, there were a few main types. Highlights the weapon's versatility. First, you have the kazori. That's maybe the most classic look, defined by its highly curved blade. Great for those big sweeping cuts.
Okay, the kazori.
Then there's the hiromaki. This one is, well, It's basically a full katana blade mounted on a pole, often even included a handguard, a tsuba.
Wow, whole sword blade on a stick.
Pretty much. Maximum blade length, maximum cutting power from that familiar sword design.
And the third?
The third main type is the bisentu. This one had a shorter but very thick and heavy blade.
Thicker. Why?
This variant was often favored against heavily armored opponents or even, say, light fortifications. The density gave it greater piercing power and just sheer durability against hard targets.
Okay, so different tools for different jobs, essentially.
Exactly.
Understanding the physics, the construction, it makes sense why it could dominate. Now, let's shift to its heyday, the Genpei War.
Right. That's really its golden age. We're talking about the conflict between the Taira and Minamoto clans, roughly 1180 to 1185. Figures like Minamoto no Yoritomo leading the Minamoto side. And this war saw a huge reliance on heavy cavalry.
Knights on horseback, basically.
Essentially, yes. And the Naginata was the perfect counterweapon for that.
How so? Who used it?
It was primarily deployed by infantry, the foot soldiers. It gave them the reach to engage the warrior on horseback from a relatively safer distance.
So they could strike the rider?
Strike the warrior in the saddle, yes. Or, perhaps even more critically, disable the horse itself. Cut the legs, attack the belly. Stop the charge dead.
Ouch. That sounds brutal, but effective.
Extremely effective. And this direct tactical impact, it fundamentally altered military equipment design. It's not a coincidence that during this period, armor had to be seriously upgraded.
How?
With soon 8 shin guards. They became essential specifically to defend against the Naginata's devastating low blows.
Ah, so it wasn't just protecting the warrior's legs.
No, it was just as much about protecting the vulnerable legs and belly of the horse to keep that charge going. The Naginata literally dictated how the enemy had to protect themselves. It shaped the battlefield.
It really sounds like it ruled the field for quite some time then. Centuries.
It did, for a good while. But like all military technologies, its dominance eventually faded.
What changed?
The big shift came around the 17th century. It was the massive diffusion of the arquebus, the early firearm. The Japanese called it tanagashi teppo.
Ah, gunpowder arrives.
Exactly. And it completely revolutionized warfare. When soldiers could effectively kill from, potentially hundreds of meters away, a powerful polearm designed for medium to short-range combat
becomes less relevant on the open field.
Precisely. It became largely obsolete out there. The era of massed formations relying heavily on melee weapons like the Naginata was fundamentally changed by firearms.
But that's not the end of the story, is it? The weapon moves off the battlefield.
Right, and into a completely different sphere of influence. This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Okay, where did it go?
During the subsequent long period of relative peace, the Tokugawa Era, the Naginata, transitioned. It left large-scale warfare behind and found new life, new utility as a dueling weapon, and maybe more importantly, as a crucial piece of defense equipment.
Since for what? Castles?
For fortresses, yes, but also significantly for private residences, homes.
And this is where the shift in users happens, right? This domestic reuse.
This is the crucial pivot point. The active use of the Naginata gradually passed from the male warriors, often away on duty or campaigns.
To their women.
To their women, exactly. And we need the cultural context here. These weren't just, helpless figures waiting at home.
No.
These were not the wives, daughters, women of the warrior class. They were often highly educated, ran the household, managed finances, staff.
They were the administrator.
Absolutely, the true administrators. And they were responsible for the security of the home and family when the men were absent. Training with the Naginata wasn't a pastime.
It was a required skill.
It was part of their expected skill set for defending the home, the family, the property. A serious responsibility.
Okay, but why the Naginata specifically?
Yeah.
Why not just a sword for home defense?
Well, think about the weapon itself. It boils down to physics and, crucially, distance.
The reach again?
The reach. The Naginata allowed the user, maybe someone physically smaller or lighter, to maintain a significant interval, a safety gap from an intruder.
Ah, so it neutralizes some physical disadvantages.
Exactly. That mechanical advantage, that extra distance, it partially neutralizes potential disparities in weight, height, sheer brute strength between opponents. It's a weapon that leverages geometry, physics to empower the defender. It was the great equalizer in that context.
It's a remarkable piece of engineering that becomes this symbol of female preparedness and defense within the home.
Perfectly put.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit. The samurai class eventually dissolves. The Meiji Restoration. Does the Naginata just disappear then?
No, it enters yet another phase. Institutionalization.
How?
Following the collapse of the feudal system and the rise of the modern Japanese state, martial arts took on a distinctly educational focus rather than purely military. And around 1912, give or take, the handling of the Naginata actually became formalized as a mandatory scholastic activity for young Japanese women in schools.
Mandatory. Wow. So it became part of the curriculum.
Yeah. Cementing its association primarily with women in the modern era, even though the traditional art itself, Naginata Jutsu, is incredibly demanding physically.
Right. It's not easy, is it? You're swinging this long, heavy weapon.
Well, it requires great physical conditioning, resistance.
Yeah.
You're moving it in these precise, flowing, interchangeable curves, using not just a blade, but the shaft for blocking, tripping, the Ishizuki for striking.
Yeah.
It's a whole body weapon system.
And tactically, what's the key advantage? You keep mentioning reach, but how does that play out in a fight, say, against a swordsman?
It really all comes down to math, that core martial arts concept of interval or combative distance. The Naginata creates an extreme ma'ai. It forces the opponent, typically a swordsman in these scenarios, to engage at nearly double the normal fighting distance they'd be comfortable with.
Double the distance. That must put the swordsman in a really tough spot.
An almost impossible dilemma, yeah. Think about it. If the Naginata master is executing techniques at, say, normal sword speed, the swordsman has to generate almost double that speed just to close the distance safely and land an effective cut. It demands perfect timing, incredible alertness, and, frankly, a lot of energy from the attacker.
So the Naginata wielder can control the pace.
Completely. And the beauty of the Naginata Jutsu master's strategy is often patience. Because of the weapons range, they don't need to rush in desperately.
We can wait.
They can wait, control the space, use feints, use the length to keep the opponent guessing. They can invite the opponent to become impatient, to overcommit, to break their own timing.
And then capitalize on the mistake.
Exactly, creating the perfect opportunity for a devastating countermove. The real difficulty in fighting a skilled Naginata user isn't always the complexity of their moves, it's that overwhelming sustained distance advantage. It's mentally taxing.
So this modern educational focus you mentioned, did that change the art itself? Like kendo compared to old kenjutsu?
Yes, to some extent. That educational push led to the development of the contemporary, more stylized form, Atarashi Naginata, literally new Naginata.
When did that emerge?
Around 1950 or so. And yes, it's quite similar to kendo in its approach, sparring with protective armor, specific points, more sport-oriented.
But did the older, maybe more combat-focused traditions survive?
Thankfully, yes. The truly classical schools, the Koryu of Naginata Jutsu, many of them survived. They preserved the more practical combat applications of the art.
Can you give examples?
Sure. Schools like Tendo Ryu or Toda Ryu, among others. These schools maintain that original intensity and focus on the practical applications, the battlefield principles that later informed those effective domestic defense techniques we talked about. They keep the older ways alive.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway here? The Naginata's story feels like more than just weapon history.
Oh, absolutely. It's a profound lesson in flexibility and adaptation.
We've seen its whole life cycle, haven't we?
Pretty much. From being this absolute battlefield dominator that literally forced changes in armor design during the Genpei War,
Right.
through its clever transformation into a sophisticated defensive weapon, leveraged brilliantly by women to protect the integrity of the home, the family.
It really is a perfect example of how simple mechanical principles like distance, leverage, smart engineering can fundamentally alter who holds power in a conflict, regardless of brute strength.
Exactly. It's about using the tools smartly.
So maybe the Naginata's enduring lesson for us, for you listening, is that the value of knowledge or even a technology isn't fixed. It's not static.
Well said. A cutting-edge military technique from centuries ago becomes a vital domestic defense art, and then later still, a key educational tool for discipline and physical culture.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How technology's true power often lies less in its original design and more in our willingness, our creativity to adapt its application to new contexts, new challenges. So here's something for you to ponder. Next time you encounter a problem, a conflict, even just a challenge, ask yourself, is there an angle here I'm missing? Is there a way to leverage some kind of advantage, maybe mechanical, maybe strategic, maybe even just mental distance that completely changes the dynamics? Something to think about as you look for those unexpected applications, those hidden leverages in your own life.
Thank you for listening to this podcast.
Kendo e Aido Italia, il podcast.